Good morning, everybody. I am going to update you on all the progress here. I've been delayed so much on the sanding and refinishing of the outside of the boat. It's ridiculous, but my time's starting to run down. I'm starting to feel the stress of it, but I don't regret it all. Um, you know the uh, the reasons for that, because I've spent some good quality time with my mom, and I've got Finn the RV looking so perfect. It should hopefully be really nice for the new buyer, whoever that is. And so, yeah, a lot of distractions, but my new windows are ready to be picked up today. So I wished that I was already painting and ready to put the windows in, but I've just got to hit it hard and get it done. So I'm going to spend this morning while it's still cool sanding, and then later I'm going to pick up the windows.
A new place, a new home for a while. Let me feel alive. Nothing to hold me back. Take my time, just enjoy the ride. A new man passing by. Life is good, best I've ever felt.
So for sure, if you can take windows out before painting, it is so much easier. It is extremely difficult to try to sand around these corners especially and not scratch up the paint on the window frames. And now I should have taken out the center window and the door. That's pretty easy. These corner windows are really hard to get in and out. I wouldn't have messed with those anyways, but since I've already taken them out and redone them, I'm certainly not going to. But yeah, so I'm going to use a straight edge, I think, to try to sand along the edge of these frames. It's straight, but on the corners I just put several layers of masking tape to try to limit the odds of scratching up the paint as I sand it. But yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, that's for sure. Alright, on the way to pick up the new windows for the boat. Luckily the place I wanted to get them from, one of the best places I found anyway, is Peninsula Glass, and they're actually located in Vancouver, Washington, which is thankfully a pretty easy drive for me, so just fortunate to be so close. So yeah, just cruising down the freeway and should be there in about a half an hour. I've already been going about an hour, or a little over an hour, so the whole drive's about 2 hours. Not too bad. There it is, Peninsula Glass. Figure out where the front door is. Looks like right here. Instructions were to check in the front office, I think, so check my email and make sure. Okay. Should be picking up the windows in any moment now. So I didn't realize it, but accidentally had them put it in a crate, and I brought the Outback, so that didn't work. So we're gonna open them up and put them in the Outback, I guess, because to try to put this inside there is not really gonna be very easy. So I mean, that would work great if I brought a truck, or if they were shipping it, but we're just gonna open the top and put them in, I guess. Okay, they're all packed in there. Lots of towels and styrofoam and everything else between them. Hopefully they won't move around too much while I'm driving. Okay, here's a window from the front side. Yeah, just the powder coating is super nice, super heavy duty, just beautiful, beautiful. Can't wait to put them in, but I gotta get this boat finished, sanded and painted first. So Anyway, they should be safe and sound in the trailer. Yeah, so I have an obscene amount of hours into sanding working on this, and here's a question for everyone watching. I still feel like this might be a little bit wavy, and so the question is, how crazy about this do I get? Because maybe I want to put a whole nother layer of fairing over this and block sand it again and try to really get it level, or am I just being too like crazy with it? That's kind of the question I'm asking myself right now. How many crazy amount of hours do I want to spend on this? I'm running out of summertime real fast, and it's going to rain eventually. You need to get this thing painted, get the windows in. So much work to do. The other thing is, are we absolutely confident that this has been sanded down enough? My answer to that is yes. I feel pretty good about it. You can see the little hairlines that are left here, but I feel pretty confident those will be completely, they're completely smooth and they'll be completely hidden when it's painted. So I didn't get too crazy, actually, just because I didn't mix that much fairing. And so I ended up adding just a tiny bit to the lowest spots, but also that was just to try to fill in those little potholes that form. And found out that I never tried to put this fairing on super thin. It is pretty hard to put on super thin. Could have probably tidied up that spot a little bit better, but anyway, tried to, before it started setting up, tried to hit all the most important spots, and I think I probably accomplished that pretty well. I'm glad to get a fair amount of thickness right here at the front so we can not have a dip right before the corner. That'll be nice. And there was a pretty good low spot right here, which might still be a little low, but it's less so than it was because I've added thickness there. So yeah, still some little imperfections, but when we keep sanding it down, I think those will just disappear. So I plan to sand this to 320. So yeah, let this dry, and then I will actually go right to the 120. Since this is already at 120, I'll sand this fairing with the 120, and then I'll immediately progress to the 220, and then 320. And that's my plan. And right now we're going to go to the other side and put some fairing on that side. Got to mix some fresh. I can't really film all this too easy because just to touch the camera I have to completely clean my hands up and take the gloves off, and then to start and stop the camera with just me, I have to start it before I even start mixing. So yeah, this filming with no help is not super easy, but do my best here to show you what's going on. So I just busted out this next little coat of fairing as quick as I could before it set up and while the weather is perfect. So I'm sure I'll find a few little spots that I want to touch up as I'm doing a kind of final sanding on this thing, but I'll show you a couple of major things I might not have shown you yet. I did a little round of fiberglass right here at the front center, because everywhere down the center line of this boat where they join the two halves of the boat building it tends to be a trouble spot. So it was looking pretty rough right there and a little bit maybe cracking up, so I just put a nice layer of fiberglass on there, and then did fiberglass at the back, but same thing right under the back door. It was a little rough, and I had put epoxy in there, thickened epoxy filler in there, and that area was still a little rough, so right under the back door I just added more fairing compound so it'll be a nice and straight and smooth joint. And then as soon as this is dry, we'll get to more of the final sanding stage. I'm breaking into the 320 sandpaper. I'm not ready to, I haven't even done 220 on the front and back yet, hardly at all, but my arms are so tired of hand sanding that I'm gonna start the 320 on the sides, because I've already done all 220 on the sides. So that's a big step because it's the last sanding, but there may be a few little minor imperfections that I want to come back to, but But for the most part, the sides will be done when I finish the 320. So okay, I got the grinder out today because I need to tackle this spot right in front of the door that's getting all cracked up and the surface is peeling off. And that's way more than, because it's got this grippy coat on it. So I've got the sanding pad, it's an 80 grit sanding pad on the grinder, and I'm only planning to take off just this maybe a 8-inch wide section right here between the hatch and the door. The rest of it I think is gonna hold them together fine. It's just the same spot on the boat, right down the center line is always the trouble spot. And then it's also right where everyone steps. So I'm gonna grind this down to see what we got in here, and then see if we need to do any repair work. So put on my mask and gloves and see what happens. Kind of scary stuff to try to grind off, but we're gonna do it. Here's a close-up look at the after effects of grinding this down, and as I suspected, there is a crack actually in the fiberglass, and so I'm gonna definitely make a repair here. I think, even though it seemed like I ground out a lot, there's very, very little gap here, and this isn't structural because there's a big bulkhead under here, right under there. So this really is just a cosmetic thing. So I'm trying to decide, do we just do thickened epoxy or do we do fiberglass? If anything, just a layer of fiberglass where the crack is so it won't spread. Maybe 2 layers of fiberglass, but mostly this is a thickened epoxy thing. So I'm actually gonna do a thickened epoxy and a lightly thickened epoxy all around the hatch here, because it's really in bad shape, and I'm just gonna use it like a self-leveling, if that makes sense. Let it just come through here and fill all these cracks, and then especially right here at the back, center line of the boat's always a trouble spot. And this is also very reinforced. Actually, I don't know, that might be actually almost worse off than the front end. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm still just thinking a thickened epoxy for this right now. And then thickened epoxy around these drain holes so that they don't leak. And that's, I mean, yeah, this could probably be a more significant project, maybe more carefully done, but I don't have that much time and I just want to get it watertight. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna get this a little more cleaned and have at it. Got 1 sheet of fiberglass ready. Certainly going to need more of this, but I can always mix more. This kicks so fast. It's already getting hot in my touch here. So yeah, I'm used to that, kicking fast. I'm going to put that on backwards, I don't know. Either way, it's going to be there. It's going to be primarily a deck repair thing here. We'll mix more for the hatch repair. Got major cracks here that we're just going to fill. I don't say so bad. Oh, that's so good. use what's left of my brush to fill these cracks in. Alright, here's an up-close look at what I just did. So you can see those holes aren't, those indentions and cracks aren't fully filled in, but this gets us a long way, and all these cracks are almost entirely filled in. So yeah, this is going to be real nice, and this crack won't transfer through to the surface so easily now. This whole deck obviously could probably use a scraping and refinishing, but it doesn't look bad at all really, so I'm gonna just live with this repair right now. Okay, so about this locker up front, really getting it all cleaned out really well. And I thought initially I would come in with some thickened epoxy, because I certainly could tidy this up a lot, but honestly it's just a locker, and the way it is, if it gets wet in here, it just drains down into the bilge. So I suppose it could have a drain and go right, could like be watertight and have a drain that went right out the front of the boat through a through hull. But I think for now I'm not going to do anything else with it. I mean, it's structurally held up really well. It's 50 years old and it's in perfect condition. So I've got bilge paint, and I'm going to use bilge paint on it, whatever you call it. I'm going to probably do that here in a few minutes if I can find a roller pan. I forgot to get roller pans. So there's light at the end of this sanding tunnel. I'm at that stage where it's down to the ultra fine, and it's getting so smooth that if you're not got a clean surface, you can actually scratch it. But I've got little pieces of sandpaper here. I've got a 120, a 220, and a 320, and I'm just kind of going around, and when I see an imperfection, sometimes it's a little deeper than, because this is the area where I had hand sand, and it's definitely the most challenging. So if I see an imperfection, I can sometimes come in with the 120, then I 220, then I 320 again, and try to get it looking just perfect. And yeah, some of this, yeah, it could probably have used more 320, but it's getting to the point now where this paint, goes on actually pretty thick and covers up the real minor imperfections. So I'm not that worried about it. This is just dirty. So yeah, so I'm still doing 320 at this point, and the paint only actually suggests 220, and they want the paint to really adhere well. But my test subject with 320 actually for what I'm doing actually is working. And this, even though I'm 320 in it, it's probably, it's probably got the rough surface still of a 220 in a lot of places. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with what it's looking like, even if I scuff it up with 220 right before I paint it. I am so thankful that I finished sanding. I have been hours and unbelievable amount of hours on this, and so finally it's time to get everything cleaned up and prepared for paint. And before I paint, I wanted to do what I'm doing right here. I'll show you. There's a few of these windows that, a few of the walls, I guess you might say, around the windows are separating a little bit, and there's little pockets where the foam is either, I don't know, degraded or whatever, or missing. I don't know what's exactly happened over the 50 years, Anyway, so I've got new foam I'm going to inject just to kind of get everything ship shape here. And the boat from outside wall to outside, or from inside to outside, should be 2 1/4. And so I've got a board in here to kind of keep the wall like straight all the way through. And this is one spot where it was the worst, and now I've checked, and I'm 2 1/4 all the way through, and 2 1/4, and then up here, it was just a slight bit off. I just put a clamp on there and just took there's a little bit of a gap there, and everywhere else, maybe that's a little bit loose right there. Maybe I'll move that clamp down an inch, but just making sure it's right all the way around before I add foam. And then this other window, it's got a couple little spots. It's not as bad. All the other ones probably don't need anything to speak of, but still, I'll measure them all and put a clamp anywhere I need to, so that when I add foam, I'll just leave it until the foam dries, and if it pops out if the wall separates after the foam dries, it's not really a big deal because the windows clamp from both sides, so the window will actually squeeze the wall right back into place anyways. So I thought about trying to add epoxy in here and really like gluing the walls together, but they're not separating anywhere else, just right around the window, and they weren't separating before because the windows were holding them in place. So that's all there is to it. So I'm going to get my foam out and my gloves, because that's sticky stuff. Try not to get any on the outside of the boat. Get all the windows foamed up today. So this side needs a lot less foam. It's in better condition, but right here the wall is separating just a little bit, and honestly I'm not sure that I really need to add anything there, but I actually left it slightly wide because I think I will just squirt a tiny bit of foam down in there, then squeeze that clamp, just one extra squeeze, and bring it to right where it should be, and just kind of use that foam to kind of glue it tight, even though when the window's in it'll clamp it down anyways. But then there's one little or kind of big gap right up here, but really this one's in pretty good shape, so not a lot to do. Same going down. There's one spot down there where I just clamp the wall in a little bit, so this side will be pretty easy. The spot I'm going to use a ton of foam. I'll show you. Yeah, for some reason there's no foam in the door, so I got some large gap filler foam, and I think I will just foam this whole door just for insulation purposes, so everything will be nice and tight. Let's do the big gap filler. Well, put that. Seriously, this head is cracked. It really screws up the process. Luckily there's a spare head here. I'm going to leave that other can kind of useless without the head, but I need this desperately. Alright, come on, let's try again. Yeah. Get down there. Oh, come on, don't. So I know that this foam expands over time, and so it was kind of a guessing game, like how much to put in there. And there's actually still a few little gaps, although most of it's filled up. And I'm not even going to try to touch it. I know this stuff is just slimy as heck till it dries, and once it's dry you can just chip it right off and cut it right out. So I'm okay with this, and most importantly is I don't see any of it on the nice finished surface here, so that's good. I have a tiny bit of foam probably left in that can, so when this fully sets up I might just touch up a few spots, but man, there's some nice, this is brilliant because there were some good gaps obviously in the walls, and so I was able to really let it just flow in there and fill all the gaps in the walls. So pretty excited about the just like the added insulation value and integrity of the walls. I just put a ton of it up here, and I expect this is still expanding right now. So this whole upper area above the window here, the foam had degraded or never was there or whatever. I don't know what happened, but anyway, so that's good. I'm gonna have to get another can of foam though. So in hindsight, I think I might have put masking tape on the inside or even the outside, but see how it's folded over and touched the wall. But honestly, I'm not even going to mess with it. I'm just going to let it be completely dry because I think these walls weren't cleaned yet. I mean, they're all dusty. I feel like that dust is going to be helpful. So as soon as this is just completely dry, I should just be able to pop it right off there. I don't think it's going to cause any problem. But next time, I'm definitely going to think ahead on having this stuff fall in, because that's what it's doing. Interesting. So I'm not sure the best knife to trim this with, but the boat has several fillet knives in it, so I'm just trying that, and it's pretty incredible actually. I think serrated might be better, but It seems to work pretty good. Huh, check that out. Brilliant. Yeah, I have no problem there. And as I suspected, the wall was so dirty it didn't even stick. So yeah, this is going to be fine. Okay. Yeah, this is no problem at all. I like how this is working out. I got more foam to do the rest of the windows. So let's get this done and oh, some of it's not cured yet. See it pulsing? Ha! That's funny. All right, we'll give it a little more time. This large gap foam is definitely more unruly than the narrow gap foam. I prefer the other stuff, but actually the narrow gap foam works so good I should have just used only that, but I used large gap foam and it's still fresh here, so it should continue to expand, but it doesn't expand as much as the small gap foam from my experience. So there's actually going to be some gaps left in here, but considering there was no foam here at all before, wherever I end up is not going to be that worried about it. But it's just nice to get. I've done such a nice job here and can't believe how much stuff spilled, but I'm just going to let it dry and then chip it off, hopefully. This place is such a mess, but it's so dusty and dirty, but I've cut it all out now and it looks really good. Definitely, I mean, it's not totally every gap filled, but I'm not stressing about every little gap necessarily, just the big ones. And now the wall has stayed, the foam has been enough to glue the walls like right back together into their proper thickness. So everything's just the way it should be. This side didn't hardly need any, and I didn't get quite enough in this lower gap, but there's still foam in there, and so I might come through and just shoot a tiny bit more in there. But honestly, this one was already pretty good. I could have thought that camera was rolling that whole time, but just in case it wasn't, I just poured in the thickened epoxy into here and kind of painted it in, and then I just kind of clamped it gently. I didn't clamp it tight, but just clamped it a little together so the fiberglass is, and I used the little tongue depressor and just dabbed that stuff all the way down in there, so hopefully it's got a little bit of a good space to bond. So anyway, I am gonna epoxy all this wood, but I wanted to use a thickened epoxy down here, and looks like there might be a little bit of a gap still, but it's gonna be what it is, and we'll see what it dries like.